Okay, right, we're going to do a little tutorial because it's been a little while since I've done one, and there's something I've been wanting to do one on for a little while, and just talk about some of the things that I try to work on whilst designing, because I think we get a lot of stuff about people chatting about templates and a lot of misconceptions, frankly, that essentially I kind of wanted to do my little talk through of these, and it kind of fitted a nice point with where we're at with this plot. So yeah, now we're going to start by talking about kind of strategy generally, and then kind of look into more the template stuff, and really what templates are, what they aren't, etc. So this is going to be a links course that I'm doing a collab on with Joe Golfer G, he of template fame. It won't be my first dive into templates. I've done a couple of, I tend to go template inspired courses. I don't go for the geometric style. Oh, I've just realised I've forgotten to download the latest version of this plot, so I'm going to exit out and get that. And while I do that, I'll just chat through. So Coma Bay, for example, was my World Cup of Design course, and that is actually all template holes, with the exception of some of the par 3s. I tend to find the par 3s a little trickier to work with as templates. Now, what a template is essentially is, first of all, they will be hole designs, some of them that you have used before. Some of them can be as simple as a dogleg where you're cutting the corner. Some of them can be as simple as having a two-tiered green. But what I understand them as really doing is kind of putting a name to a concept. And then, there we go, he's done the burn that we're working in. And I'll walk you through a few of the ones on here as well, that we've got. Now it might be pinching the landing zone, it might be cutting a corner. What I think they're really good for is ensuring that you're not just reusing the same idea over and over and over and over again. Some of them are very specific, and let's move that over. Some of them are very specific and kind of lead, I guess, more niche than others. Some of them very adaptable. Some of them can only tend to only be based around the green and therefore are really malleable. So let's say, for example, let me find you a green site. So let's say we had this one here. Now, one of the simplest ones you can do would be known as a lion's mouth. Now, let's say this is our green shape. Bloop. And we would pop a little bunker in front. Hi Joe, just the person. Now, instantly, that's kind of become a lion's mouth template. This one won't be, but something as simple as that is going to give us a wide variety of ways to, well, if the pin's over here, I don't want to be attacking it from here. If the flag's over here, I don't want to be coming from this way, otherwise I'm going directly over the bunker. Little things like that. So what I wanted to do today was kind of talk through those briefly. Joe has got a great thread on template architecture, and all of those sorts of things. And what I'm going to try to do is implement a bit of that and talk through kind of coming up a whole design, going from one basic concept and trying to expand it out as much as possible. Just so you get an idea of variety, we've not got surfaces down for most of them, but the ones we do have, one is going to be known as a prize dogleg, which is basically you get a better angle into the green and avoid these bunkers the more you cut the corner. Now, the idea of cutting a corner is nothing new, it's then how do you expand on it? Well, if we put two bunkers here, then if you're coming in from this angle, you're contending with them more. If we angle the green this way, facing closer to this angle, you want to be more left. And in addition, you're also having a shorter shot in. So all of those things combine together and you're going to get kind of a much better shot the more left you are. Hello! Oh, we've got a raid as well. Lovely. Petro does have lots to learn. This is true. 2 I put in and then deleted all the measure tools because I'm an idiot. 2 is going to have a very narrow, skinny green. I'm going to need to go and watch my own video on demand and check that one out. Foolish. Back again, yeah, I thought I'd do one little kind of evening stream, and it's been a while since I've talked about this sort of stuff. Good evening, Jeff. 3 we're going to do as a maiden. This one depends. This one's the green complex. You can see there's 2 raised plateaus, but all of these holes so far should provide different challenges. Here you're thinking mainly about the tee shot. Here it's going to be your approach shot because it's going to be a really shallow green that you have to be very precise on distance control. This one it's going to be more where do you choose off the tee, where do you go, etc. How do you want to attack each pin? It's more thinking about it. This looks lovely. You've done that very nicely, Joe. Oh, he's got... The Redan is going to be really precision in terms of where you play it and trusting the land. We're then going to have a hog's back, which is defined by a spine in the middle of the fairway. You can look all of these up and kind of understand the concepts, but really, I guess what templates aren't is, and I think the name itself is a bit of a misnomer because they aren't templates. They are concepts around which you come up with a whole design. So with this one, well, our key concept is this spine running up the middle of the fairway. I'm choosing to use it as diagonal, which means that you could kind of go over this way. You could try to ride it and get up here. If you hit it on the wrong angle, you might go over there. It might be seen as a little bit punitive. I'll be careful with how we do it. But that's the concept. It's how you use it. You could use it as going straight down and then you get a bounce forward off it, or it deflects to left or right. A variety of ways. You could even run it all the way through and into the green and kind of have left to go left sort of hole. Loads of stuff. So, what I wanted to do was look at 9, because this is one of the ones I've kind of been thinking about earlier, which is going to be a double plateau. And I actually happily planned this during a work meeting this afternoon, which didn't require all of my attention. So, double plateau is a hole that I've never done before. Or at least I tried to, and I wasn't very good at it. Defined by, we've got 2 plateaus on the green, so 2 raised tiers, but they tend to be separated. You've got one front and one back right, usually. Now, what I've always found tricky, typically, has been making that look natural. So, I think I came up with a way of doing it. And it's going to take a little bit of fiddling. Yeah, productive, I think. Now I'm going to have to check this doesn't get in the way of the next one, but we can always move this T over a little bit if it does. So, firstly, in and amongst all of this, I would recommend sketching ideas out. Not necessarily because you'll use them, but because they make you think about where you're putting hazards and why you're putting them there. With this one, the key concept is going to be we've got a front plateau, we've got a back plateau, making distance and accuracy important, and giving a wide variety of pin positions. It's a relatively short hole, 380. You've probably got, well, a wedge coming into this, no matter what you hit off the tee. So actually, with a hole of this distance, you might want to play with the concept of, well, do you want to bait people into hitting it too far and leaving a pitch, which we know runs out slightly further, making them hit into a downslope? And with shorter holes, it's often, can you kind of manufacture an angle going the wrong way? So, as in, can you bait people into coming from this side to a green that slopes away that way and make it harder to hold? Now, we also have a burn running through this. This one is purely visual. It's coming in at 150 yards. We're not hitting an 8 iron off the tee or a 9 iron, so we've got no issues there. Now, I had a couple of key things that were going to need to take place for this. Firstly, because the land's kind of starting up high and high here and then low in the middle, I felt like I wanted to make that fit a bit more. So I'm going to create a dune back here. And it's kind of placeholder at the moment, but I'm going to want to check how it comes into this play on this one as well. I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. And I think with this one, the main thing I've got has got to be to work out what my angles are before I do anything. So the idea I'm going to have is basically that if you play left off the tee, you open up that green a little bit more. You come dead down it and you've got maximum of pitching wedge coming down. If you play down the middle, you're going to be slightly blind because you're going to have a couple of bunkers sitting right in front of you. And in actual fact, we've got a really good place for them just about here. They're not really, I don't want them necessarily to be hazards that you run into, so I might move them a bit further back. I think my other tip with all of this would be kind of take your time with the tools and like looking at the land and working out where things are going to go. The tricky part for me with strategy is we see a lot of holes, certainly judging contests you'll see a lot of holes where people have designed it because they hear the word options and they go, oh well, I need to create a bit of fairway here for you to hit driver and a bit of fairway here for you to hit 3-wood and a bit of, and all at massively different angles, and you get fairways that are 110 yards wide and they're just nonsensical. Please don't do that. That's not really what it's about. It's not about chucking on an extra fairway, or often doing split fairways can seem like the easiest way to do strategy because it's either you hit here or you hit there. For me, that's never what it's about. It's kind of, can you use a relatively minimum of features placed well to kind of vastly adjust how a hole plays. Now we've kind of got this big rise here, which I don't want, because I'm going to want to put 3 bunkers in here. I have 1 there, 1 here, and a 3rd. Do I want a 3rd shorter? I think I'm just going to have a little cluster, like really close together actually. And what these are really doing is kind of making it clear to you which side you want to be on off the tee. If you're paying attention, if you look at the tee and you see, well, there's bunkers protecting the right hand side, there's not much protecting the left, well, I probably want to go left and open up the green. And to kind of compound that a little bit more, we're going to pop a little bunker down here. That wasn't a little bunker down this side as well, which means that if you are coming from down here, maybe that one needs to go back a little bit more. So the idea for this one is going to be, well, if you're coming down here, not only do you have to worry about these ones, but you have to kind of think, well, if I go way long, it won't be an issue, but that's potentially in line as well, whereas if you're coming from this side, you're just hitting straight down. As ever, if you have any questions, do ask. Kind of very happy to talk through anything and everything I'm trying to do. So, I think the ideal layup I was going to have going about here, and I want to have a little bunker in here as well to make you think about that, and also really to kind of make you think about going just left of centre and not too far left. Right to left green slope. Not so much. I mean, with this one there's not going to be a huge amount of actual slope because there's a front tier and a back tier. So really it's just going to be about I'll be honest, I haven't really thought about green slope itself yet. It's not the defining feature of the hole, so I'm going to take my time on thinking about that one. Now I do want the front portion to be relatively slim, but it's a good question. And then we're going to expand, so it's not your traditional sort of double plateau that you might see on one of Joe's courses, in that those tiers are very pronounced and very clear, and you've got all the geometric shapes that make stuff. What those are good for is making the strategy really obvious. This one's going to be more kind of your traditional curvy sort of shapes. And we're going to have a little portion back here that I want to allow access to, and then we'll come around here as well. Now that might be a little big as a green shape, but we can work with it. And actually, because we're going to have pretty big tiers on this, I don't mind it being slightly bigger than some of the other greens we've got. Now with that in mind, we're probably going to want to move that bunker in a little bit, just so it nestles into that corner for, you know, aesthetics and that. Now, part of what I like about this sort of a green shape, it still looks relatively natural, doesn't look kind of too curvy, etc. But say we have a back left pin, and this is the sort of green that I love, well suddenly your strategy that you've used on pretty much every single time you play this hole kind of flips. Well, maybe you want to be approaching this pin from over there, and then suddenly you've got a load of green to work with. You're not coming over that one little bunker. Yeah, it definitely would. The reason why I'll shy away from it is because 10, and this kind of comes back to confluence of strategy and like which holes you put where and understanding how the templates go together. 10 is going to be 11, which is you hit over here for the best angle, and then there's this giant mound that is kind of blocking the green, and the green's going to be angled that way. So if I was doing that over here, well, suddenly we've repeated the same idea twice, and it kind of gets a little bit samey. Part of the joy for me of templates is knowing that if I think these through, I'm basically going to have holes that are pretty much completely different. Now I want to make sure we get these two right. Yeah, me too. It's just the hardest part of all of this with strategy for me is making sure that it doesn't feel forced and it doesn't feel too obvious. Or not obvious, but it doesn't seem like... Trying to do a fairway with options while still looking like a normal fairway is tough. Yeah, it's a template collab will work well. So within this, we're going to try and do... We've got a fairway that's like, okay, going to be a shade over 40 yards at its widest point, which is not massively wide, but we're going to give you a shed load of options. Do you want to go here? Do you want to go short of here and risk kind of not really being able to see over those bunkers plus being in pitch range? Do you want to go down here and roll down that way? And I haven't even gotten into the slopes and things yet that I'm going to try to put into this one. And I think, purely for kind of decorative reasons, I wanted to put a little pot in here as well. Yeah. And that's kind of for the fairway to wind around as well, and then it reduces your giant width of the fairway a touch. So, we've got our couple of layups at the moment. So this one's going to be kind of driver landing at, well, 285, but we consider with wind. So with wind, you might be thinking about running into those bunkers. Without, you're probably landing way short of it. Okay. Now I think I've got everything that I kind of wanted so far. I've now got to make the land do a little bit more what I want it to. Part of the reason why we've created this dune is to ensure that when we do have this plateau back right, it looks like it makes sense. And Joe and I were chatting about this before we started, kind of settled on this one as a whole. The difficult part of the double plateau green is that you've got this shelf at the front, which we'll do relatively roughly now, and you've got a shelf at the back right, and it just doesn't look any sort of natural. So I think my challenge was trying to think of, well, how can you, on a links course that is supposed to be pretty natural, how do you make it look like it's supposed to be there? And so that's going to be my answer. It's kind of coming up with this dune that we're banking this slope into. You can tell at the moment I'm not even looking at green contours or anything. Not worried about it for the moment. And it may be that that's completely the wrong idea, but I just want to see if I can get it to look even remotely like it feels like it should. Now, in terms of other greens this is kind of akin to, well, it's not miles off of Biarritz. You've got a swale in the middle, it just happens to extend to a back portion as well. It's not massively different to a maiden. Maiden would be kind of approaching this sort of a green, but from this direction, where you've got one raised wing, the other raised wing. For example, our maiden is actually up here, and you can see how it's got those two defined plateaus. I'll tell you what, this is now looking lovely. Now, what else did I plan? I planned to do something in terms of, so I want these two pots actually hiding the green. So these two have to be pretty high. Hello Foxen, good evening. So that if you end up down here, might be tricky to make them just that high, but I think we can work it. At the moment we're still just kind of really doing big moves with the land and trying to get it where we want it. Now the other thing I quite liked was having, so this little bunker off here I'm interested in. So what we're going to do now is we'll do, I've spent a lot of time just tracing stuff out, and part of that is because you get to a certain point where you've designed however many courses and you kind of know how things are going to look and how things are going to play. So what we're going to do for the moment is we're just going to chuck down some stock little surfaces and hit some shots and just see where they end up. Now we can kind of predict for rollout and things like that. Now in order to do this you can, and I think what we'll do for the moment, we're just going to run the world's most basic fairway spline around everything. You don't have to do this, I don't think I would normally, but for the point of view of a tutorial I might as well. We're going to delete that anytime soon. You see I haven't flattened the tee box, haven't worried about sight lines or anything yet. I know the elevations are roughly in line. So what I want to see essentially is how close to these bunkers do I get? Is laying up short of that going to be too tricky with a 2-wood is one of the things. Hitting over that, how does it affect my line in? Those sorts of things. And one of the other ideas I want is that if you can hit driver, can you kind of scoot round to the right of these? And I think what I intend to do is kind of put some little ridge line here where this is kind of higher and that drops lower, so that you've got a way to run down there as well. But I'm not so sold on that one. So in case you don't know, you can go into practice swing, and then if you press, well, it's X on a PS4 controller, I think is it A on a an Xbox One, and you go into this shot preview mode, and you have to have enabled this on the options first of all, and it allows you to just hit shots incessantly pretty much. So those principal nose bunkers can definitely come forward a bit. What about the slow? Yeah, we're still 10, 20 yards short. Or they could stay there and they're just a bit higher. And all I'm doing with this is really getting an idea of kind of how the ball reacts when it lands, roughly how far is it carrying. See, I forget that this hole is uphill, so I kind of need to tweak my distances based on that as well. The simple answer could just be to move the tee forward a bit. Okay, I think I've done enough of that. So, things based on that I think I might want to change. One, I think I want to move those two bunkers forward a little bit. Not by much, but a couple of yards. Second one I wanted to do was, and again this is a great way of playtesting because you can just move stuff. They're all placeholders, but if you just do this sort of thing, get loads of ideas for where things are. Didn't mind that one was fine. Still tempted to move the tee forward a little bit, but we'll see. Okay, we'll go into the same thing. Yeah, so we'll be close enough to those that they'll be blind. Sorry, the approach shot will be blind. Oh, lovely tempo this evening. still, we get an idea. Now I'm intrigued by this one because I think my idea was that you potentially run into this one rather than carry it. I definitely don't want you to be able to carry it. Okay, so I don't think you can carry. Just try and hit it fast. Ugh. Classic. Try to hit it fast and we can hit it perfect. I don't think you can carry that, so that's good. And if we hit a 2-wood, are we landing and staying short of that? I would imagine we are. Yeah, comfortably. So the next question is, we'll take the shot preview off. If we hit a 2-wood, how far have we got left in? Not worried about the random roll. So you've still only got a sand wedge in, so that's fine. And if you hit into a back pin, you've maybe got a gap wedge. That's good. Lovely. So I think that's roughly playing how I want it to in terms of distances. I do feel actually it's a little bit wide. I don't think it needs to be as wide as it is. So I think what I'm going to do is move this in a little bit. I'm going to move this one in a little bit. Not that that one's really doing very much. But I mean, how wide have we made this? Well, we've made this 66 rather than the 40 whatever, so that's probably doing it. That would explain that. Okay, so I think at this point I'll probably do a little bit more playing with the land. Because I still wanted this plateau to be, in the fairway, to be a little trickier to hold. And the idea is also that you can still just go a tiny bit left of this if you want, but you're risking kind of running off the edge of the fairway. Now with that in mind, the 2 fairway pots are going to be the nose, yeah, correct. I'm going to make this a dead straight hole as well. I think this one can come in a little, if it will let me select it. So in my head the fairway is going to come kind of out towards about here, which isn't really a problem. It's like 170 from the 10th tee, that's not an issue. Maybe sneaking a little bit close on this side, but this was always going to be a bit tight. And I can move the 10th tee over a little, that's fine. Okay, now we know we want this part of the land pretty low, because you've got to be able to have those 2 bunkers. Their purpose really is purely visual. They're just going to be blocking us from seeing exactly where on the green you're trying to land the ball. And if you've got a pitch kind of over those, no, I mean we have scout camera, so it's not going to be unfortunately as difficult as it could be, but it will do something. And I like the idea. Now I was hoping that I might be able to kind of have a lower area about here. Hiya, hon. And we're doing a little tutorial on strategy. I don't know how long we'll spend doing it. Now I think, now that I see this on the land, my idea where I'd had, like, maybe you want to have a little fairway camber that runs it this way, it was always unnecessary as an idea anyway. It was something that I'd kind of liked the idea of. Now that we look at it, with this being high, this being low, we'd have to be going really low here, and it doesn't fit with the general trend of the land, so I think we're going to scrap that idea. We don't need it. I do feel like I could potentially bring this bunker in even further, but I'm not sure I want to. I quite like where it is. So at this point I'm going to do the green. Now, those of you who've kind of seen me do greens before, I tend to go for 95 yards in terms of spline length total. My gut instinct is this one's going to be a little bit bigger. I'm going to go with about 105, I guess. We'll see. Maybe even bigger than that. Yeah, a touch bigger. We can always change it. We can always change it down a bit if we need. And actually, I think I'll probably take this back corner in a touch. And now that we can see the contours, we know we've got a bit of work to do with this one. Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be. It's just so difficult to bounce the ball into the bunkers from fairways or what have you. But yeah, totally. I mean, and I love seeing the suggestions. I have an idea in mind for how I'm intending to do this hole, but you could always, when you see the land working and you can kind of tweak, like, consider it. Always worth looking at kind of what if scenarios. Computer died, what did you miss? Some chat about templates and strategy and what have you, and me trying to hit perfect for a little while. You know, the usual stuff. So now that I look at it, the green looks a little large. But, let's go back to some of the others. That one's a temporary one. I think a little large. So we're going to redo this spline. The good thing with splines for this stuff is you can always just get rid of them, or you can tweak. I know some people will do greens with shapes. I've definitely seen that work. I'm doing exactly the same thing again. Let's go a little bit closer in. I'm going to try to get closer to that 95 that I was targeting. Okay, we're a little bit better. Still pretty much the same shape, isn't it? And part of this then just becomes eye. Like, for me, this green is just too big. When you can, and that honestly is going to be something that takes people probably the longest to learn. So, where do we want to shave little bits off? I think the back right corner a touch. Actually no, I want it going out as far as that. Probably, I think we're going to trim the whole of this left hand side a bit. That immediately makes it a little bit neater. I had one at 180, I think, which doesn't sound as impressive, but it's when you realise that's complete length of it and it's double, and yeah. I don't know, you'd have thought they'd have been longer. I think with all of that though, it's kind of having a reference of like what you think is a small green, what you think is a large green. And the final thing we're going to do with this is we're going to take this back portion just in a little bit. The ones on black salt were giant. I think the 17th was the one that did get away from me a touch. There are a couple that were very large. 17 was giant. 13 was pretty big. like comparatively for what I was trying to achieve. Still want to go out a little bit more there. What were the other ones? 2 was giant, but you had a really long approach in, so I didn't mind that one so much. 17 was the one where it never quite came out how I wanted it, but I thought it was a good hole, so I was happy leaving it. Okay, I think I'm alright with this now. Yeah, for sure. And I made a decision very early on in that contest that I didn't want to do difficult by... you can argue that I did do it, but I didn't want to do difficult by simply tucking pins on at the front with kind of no way to get at them. And I didn't want to do difficult by going tight and narrow and heavy rough everywhere. I knew it wouldn't be for everyone's cup of tea, so I'm fine with that. Hopefully, yeah, we're a little bit closer. You can see all of those changes. We've taken actually quite a lot of size off it, but it's still coming out as like only a couple of yards difference. Okay. Now, next part of our kind of doing strategy for me is making a fairway that has all of those options but still looks like it belongs and makes sense, and that's probably the trickiest part. And honestly, it's very easy to do. I wouldn't say it's very easy, but you can do 100-yard wide fairways. Anyone can do that and say, well, you can hit over here and you've got an angle, or you can hit over here. It's far harder to do angles within 30 yards of fairway. And we're going to break that. We're going to about 45, I think. But even then, I'm not going to use all of that, and whilst it might be 45 in total width, the fairway will probably only come in about 35 or so. Depending on... I'm still trying to work out if I allow you to play left of that bunker or not. I think the obvious answer is that I don't, because now that I look at it, it's going to leak you into 10. I think that's a good barrier, so we're not. And this is something I've only really started doing recently, in terms of just drawing out kind of fairway lines and widths and things. And I'm quite liking doing it. It's just different to what I've normally done. I'll still kind of do everything really by eye eventually. Sorry if I go quiet, that's now kind of thinking through how this is all working and where we're putting the fairway. Now the problem I then come to is, well, we're going to encase these two in rough and fairway. So do I want to leave... Do we want to round this in fairway a little bit? That's where we kind of look back to 10 and go, well, do we want bits of fairway here? I think not. Now we can always move 10, but kind of rather not if I don't have to. I'm going to take this about up to here, and then it kind of narrows in around the pots. And then we can pretty much go from there. And now when you look back, you can kind of see how it works, and you've got an idea of width, and now we can make our nice little smooth line as and where we want it. Just trying to think if I'm happy with everything we've got. That's going to be kind of position A1, or you could take on this bunker and just sneak on. If you sneak on this side of it, then you're okay, but you might still be obscured by this a touch. Going to have this be slightly higher than down here so you don't get blinded. I need to sit those pots down a little bit more, but that's okay. Cool. Now we're not quite ready to go yet because we still need to think about where you want the fairway to start. Now for me 180 yards is usually a good guideline. Just tends to be quite a neat place to start. I don't really know why. I think I'm going to bank the fairway around this little pot. If you can bank fairways around your bunkers, it always tends to look a little bit better. And do it whilst kind of retaining a relatively smooth curve. Okay. And so there we go. I think now I haven't sorted the green out, but what we're seeing now is how we've got really 3 different options, possibly 4 on here. I mean, have you got another option? Well, yeah, you can just hit 2 wood over this bunker and play safely here and still have a full wedge. You could play 1 iron down the middle if you wanted. I think 2 wood down the middle is still fine, but you're going to be a little bit blinded. With all of this, you've got choices off the tee, but I haven't given you a fairway where there's like hit it here or hit it here or hit it here or hit it here. And I think there's something on, whether it's on the rubric or somewhere else for contests, it's did the course dictate the proper play throughout, or did it let you make up your own mind? Now for me that's kind of how I've come to understand this as hole design. We've got hazards here that it's up to you how you want to interpret them. If you want to believe that this is the bunker to take on, great. If you think it's these 2 and it's, well, maybe I'll run out and you later find out that's not it, or if you think it's, oh, I just want to make sure I'm laying back to a full wedge, or if you think that it's the green and where those slopes are. Kind of up to you. I think for me it's about creating something that's, trying not to sound too poncy here, I don't know. I think there's multiple ways you could attack this, and I'm not necessarily saying there's one of them that's right. There's one that I would identify as probably A1, that's this one, but you'll have a shorter shot in here, and if you're going for a back pin you might want a lob wedge in your hand. It's entirely up to you. So yeah, anyway, I think I'm going to stop with the tutorial part of this video now and then carry on the stream, but hopefully that's something. If you haven't yet read up on templates, do. There really aren't a case of do this hole in exactly this way. It's a concept. With this one, the concept is a couple of bunkers that may make your approach blind, although that's optional. The real concept is kind of plateau short front, and then plateau back and on one of the sides. And just from that one idea, you can see that this hole will be different to, well, any one I've produced before, or probably ones that most people have done. So yeah, anyway, alright, I'm going to hop off the tutorial stream now. Hopefully that's all kind of semi-useful.